You can't tell that kind of a joke about basketball players because basketball players are.
You have to do math to interrupt the
Yeah, I was
score.
gonna say, you have to do math when you're doing defense.
How many threes? Well, yeah, football, you're just like, get another touchdown. Get another touchdown. Good job. How many seconds will it take me to dribble it?
Okay.
Alright, this one's here, not here.
So the first thing we're going to do today is stop talking. And the second thing we're going to do is go through a brief reminder of where we've been so far in John. We're on chapter 16, but we're only through John 5 in the Gospel of John. By the way, my very first book in my reading plan is John, so I'm actually in John. Read John 4 this morning, and I can't spend too much time. I love reading. So we have this in John 1. It begins by telling us who Jesus is. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through Him, and without Him was not anything made that was made. In Him was life, and the life was the light of men. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness is not overcome it. And so we see these words, these beautiful 18 verses that tell us who Jesus is, not just what He did, but who He is. And then it talks about John the Baptist a little bit and his ministry. And John the Baptist sends some of his disciples to go follow Jesus. And then we, in chapter 2, talked about the wedding at Cana, the first recorded miracle of Jesus. And then also in chapter 2, Jesus cleanses the temple. And then in chapter 3, he has his meeting with Nicodemus. Nicodemus comes in at night wanting to know about spiritual things. And then in chapter 4, he meets the woman at the well. And there's this story of their conversation, but then also his conversation with his disciples when they return from... Ashlyn, did you get a pass?
No, it's
Okay, on my desk. So also, the conversation not only with the woman and with the disciples, but also with the townspeople, and many came to Christ because of that. And then at the end of John 4, Jesus heals the official's son without even going to see the boy. And then in chapter 5, we see the healing at the pool of Bethesda on the Sabbath. And then we see the, John 6. And then the feeding of the 5,000 and Jesus walking on the water. And that's where we ended for this semester. So we'll pick up here now, and if you would please open your books to chapter 16. And this is Jesus teaching beginning in John 6 about he is the bread of life and what that means. So I'm going to read both the introduction, and then we'll read this part of John 6, and then we'll do those questions together. So Christ teaches that he is the bread of life, part 1. The weather map shows a very strong cold front heading down from Canada and a warm front streaming up from the Gulf of Mexico, the meteorologist declares with a serious look. Depending on where these two fronts meet, our region could be in for some significant snowfall. Suddenly, everyone is alert. Even those who have been trying to do homework during the news report are suddenly all ears. Yes, we could very well be in for heavy snowfall in the viewing area, the forecaster continues. The National Weather Service has issued a severe winter storm alert for the entire region, and we're calling for accumulations in the double digits. In the coming hours, we will know with greater certainty what to expect. You'd better believe that people will be checking their devices for updates by the minute. But as they wait for the news on the weather, they have to do something very important. In parts of the United States that face snowstorms, even the hint of such a forecast can generate a frenzy at the supermarkets. People fear being trapped in their houses by record snowfall without the basic necessities of life. As a result, the stores are jammed with shoppers. Very quickly, the aisles are emptied of bread, milk, and toilet paper. Like water, bread is a staple of life. In fact, the very word bread is symbolic of sustenance and subsistence. It is representative of the basic requirement of life. When Christ taught his disciples to pray, he told them to speak to the Father like this: "Give us this day our daily bread." With these words, he made it clear we depend on God for even the bare essentials of life. In this lesson and the next, we will study Christ's claim that he is the bread of life, the essential aspect of a proper spiritual diet. Without him, our souls are famished, just as our physical bodies are starved unless we have bread to eat. And that spiritual bread is even more important as we face the storms of life and the attacks of Satan. As we study these two lessons, pay particular attention to Christ's role as the bread of life. Note the ways in which he meets your most basic needs. So if you would please open to John 6. And we're on verse 22. We're going to read from verse 22 to verse 32. On the next day, so the next day after the feeding of the 5,000, on the next day, the crowd that remained on the other side of the sea saw that there had been only one boat there, and that Jesus had not entered the boat with his disciples, but that his disciples had gone away alone. Other boats from Tiberias came near the place where they had eaten the bread after the Lord had given thanks. So when the crowd saw that Jesus was not there, nor his disciples, they themselves got into the boats and went to Capernaum, seeking Jesus. By the way, in the NIV, it says there that they went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. And that's actually where the title of my study that we've been using sometimes came from, in search of Jesus. So seeking Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the sea, they said to him, "Rabbi, when did you come here?" Jesus answered them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because because you ate your fill of the loaves. Do not work for food that perishes, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God the Father has set his seal." Then they said to him, "What must we be doing to do the works of God? What must we do to be doing the works of God?" Jesus answered them, "This is the work of God, that you believe in him whom he sent." Who does he mean by that? Himself. They said to him, "Then what sign do you do that we may see and believe you?" Ironic question, is it not? The day after the feeding of the 5,000. Our fathers ate manna in the wilderness. As it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Jesus then said to them, "Truly, truly, I say to you, it is not Moses who gave you the bread from heaven, but my Father gives you the true bread from heaven." So I think that's all we're supposed to read there. So let's look at these questions and answer these questions together. So the first question says, since the crowds knew Jesus had not gone into the boat, how do you suppose they thought he got to the other side of the lake? Yes.
They thought you like walked around the mountain, like lanes.
Yeah, so they probably thought that he walked, maybe hitchhiked on a donkey, who knows? Yes.
Or swam.
Yeah, it would not be a swimming that you could do. That would be even for the best long distance. That would be a long swim and on rough waters. So probably not swimming, but certainly not walking on the water to the boat, right? That would not have been. I'll tell you what. I bet he got on the water, walked right out to the boat. No, they're not going to think that's what happened. And I don't think the question matters much anyway. What other questions might have been going through their minds about Jesus at this time? Think back to the feeding of the 5,000 and all of that. Yes.
Why wouldn't he not be king?
Why would he want to be king? Yeah. Why did he try to escape us? What else? Eric.
One said at this time, so when he got to the other side, but how did nobody see him?
Yeah. Yeah. How did they miss him? How did he get away from us? What else? I would think probably foremost in their mind, that one of the foremost questions is, "Are you going to do another miracle? What are you going to do next?" And that's part of why miracles don't make a very good basis for faith, because mostly it just makes you want more miracles, not Jesus. They don't want Jesus. They want what Jesus can do. They don't want Jesus. That's a problem, and that can be true for us sometimes too. And we don't really want to have a relationship with Jesus, but we want to have the blessings that come with a relationship with Jesus, and that just doesn't work. You can only have the blessings that come from a relationship with Jesus by having a relationship with Jesus. Next question. What does Jesus' answer to them in verse 26 suggest about what he knew in their hearts? So verse 26 says this, Jesus answered them, truly, truly, I say to you, you are seeking me not because you saw signs, but because you ate your fill of the loaves. Yeah. They want what Jesus can give them. They don't want Jesus. Just give me it. Give me what you can give me. When my next youngest sister was born, my mother was concerned that no, this is my sister when I was being born, I think. Try to allay my sister's fears about now not being the only child and being jealous. And so my mother kept calling me her baby. This is going to be your baby. This is going to be, And so I was born, and my mom's holding me, and my sister, I think my sister said, is her a live baby? I don't know, but then she said, is her my baby? And my mother said, oh yes, sweetie, she is. And so my sister said, then give me it. And I think that's what I think of when I think of these people, right? Just give me it. Give me it. I want the stuff. I don't want a relationship.
All right. I don't think I'd do that. If I was addressed after having it that way, I'd be like, no, it's not a date person. That's why.
Yeah.
Like it.
Well, I don't think she dropped me on my head too many times. So they were interested in material things, not in spiritual things. Their concern was stuff, not relationship. Next question. Were the people focusing on the food or the power that produced it? That's an easy one. The food. Honestly, say.
I'm like, blame on
Well, yeah, and you know, if you've ever been so hungry, you know, you haven't eaten in a long time, and you're really, really hungry. So especially some of you grown boys, right? You get home, and what's the first thing you do? Like you might just blow right past mom and say, "Man, I gotta find the chips or something. Like I need something." Maybe you're more healthy than that. Give me a banana, but. What does Jesus teach about our priorities in this passage? What does Jesus teach about our priorities? Yes.
Right. Like to focus on earthly things.
Right. And yeah, they should be.
Bless you.
We should be more concerned with that which is eternal than that which is temporal. Temporal just means temporary, not lasting. So. Eternal life and the eternal life that Jesus can give is far more important than anything that sustains physical life, whether that's food or medicine or whatever it is, because we're going to be dead a whole lot longer. And so those eternal things are far more important. Any questions or any comments about that? What do you think Jesus meant by the seal the Father placed on his Son? Yes. Oh, we did.
No, we did.
We did.
Okay.
Where's Rascal?
Jared?
Is it pointing to his baptism?
Possibly, yeah. The endorsement, for lack of a better term, of Jesus from God. That could be. The answer here says answers. So I don't know if there's a
I
wrong.
love those.
I hate it. Yes.
Just the incarnation because of course sealing away just his ability to be
Yeah, his incarnation is proof of who he is, that he is God in the flesh. And I don't think that this is just I don't think this is just a one-time thing. Like there's one answer that's correct. Both answers you've given are very good answers. So I think we can see, and we will see it again at the transfiguration, right? God saying, "This is my beloved Son, listen to him." So there are multiple places where God affirms who Jesus is, and He continues to do that. What does Jesus show the crowds in verses 27 through 30 about man's inability to please God? Look back at those verses. So Jesus says, "Do not work for the food that perishes, but for the food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give to you. For on him God has set his seal." Yes.
Like anything that we try to do now on Earth to do God, like it won't solve as much as it
Think about food. Think about the best meal you have ever eaten. I would have saffron shrimp from the name of it. It's in Kansas City, down near the plaza. I think that's probably the best, or among the best, right? So think about that. You have that meal and you savor that meal and you enjoy that meal. And then 5 hours later, you're hungry again. You're hungry again. It doesn't satisfy. And that's true of the things of the world. They don't satisfy. They satisfy for a moment, but they don't satisfy eternally. Only God can do. So Jesus is saying, spend your time, spend your effort, spend your life on that which is eternal. I have a profound uh, to talk to you about things that matter every single day. And I can't even begin to tell you how much that fulfills. Um, and it's because it matters. It matters. It's not just for today, not just for the next test. And if we're going to, and I would look at it this way. I look at our lives as an investment. When you make an investment, what are you hoping to get from it? Something back, something in return. And I see life as an investment. What am I investing my life in? Am I investing my life in things that are going to reap eternal returns, eternal results? Or am I going to invest my life in things that don't last, that aren't? Now, I'm not saying you can never watch a TV show, but I think it's important to know where we're investing. Look, you guys, you're sophomores now. You're one semester away from being upperclassmen, like true upperclassmen, juniors and seniors. And our juniors and seniors are our leaders. And I'll tell you right now that you have more influence over the culture of the school than any adult in the school. And that the culture will shift for good or for bad based on our student. That's a heavy mantle, right? But it's true. And those years when we have really good junior and senior leadership, then we have we see the shift. I've seen it even in my basketball team. That happens as well, depending on the leadership. So I would like to challenge you as second semester sophomores to be intentional with your leadership in the school. And it doesn't have to be. Some of you are like to get up in front of everybody and say something, and that's me. I'd much rather talk to 20 people, 200 people than one. I'm not really good one-on-one. That's one of my best. But some of you are like that. Probably more that way. So yeah, invest your lives in things that are eternal, things that matter. Well, I didn't even know what question you were asking. Sorry, I went on this tangent.
What is only work that I can do?
Great. What did they say this? Believe in the one who's the one sent by God. Believe in Jesus. But I don't know that that's the only one. I think everything that comes from that we do for Him, pleases God as well. How is the work of belief different from the works about which the people were asking? So they were asking for more food or more stuff. So how does the work of belief differ? Yes.
Eternal versus the temporary.
Yeah, they're eternal, not temporary. And it has greater impact and greater what I want outcome than anything that is temporal, anything that is earthly. Let's look at verse 30. So they said to him, "Then what sign do you do that we may see and believe you? What work do you perform?"
No.
Why is it not reasonable?
He just is.
Yeah, if that wasn't enough, nothing is going to be enough, right? If any miracle of Jesus, if that wasn't enough for people to believe, then nothing is going to be enough. I don't ever presume to know where my students are with anyone. That is with Jesus. But man, if you're looking for ironclad proof, you're not going to get that this side of heaven. You'll get it eventually, but not this side of heaven. And at some point, you have to realize that there's enough proof. Now, we'll spend a good deal of time next year talking about that. And at the end of this year, we'll talk about the resurrection of Christ. Next year, we'll talk about how do we know that's true. And that is, I call the resurrection the linchpin of Christianity. Because if it is true, it's all true. If Jesus actually rose from the dead, all of it's true. If it's false, it's all false. We'll be taught. I will give you plenty of reasons to believe that Christianity and Jesus all are true next year. But it is not reasonable to ask Jesus to perform a work partly because of who he is. It would be like asking the President of the United States to wash your car. That would not make sense. Right? Maybe if he was your dad, I don't know. No, but it also is not reasonable because he just performed an amazing performance. And they just want, give me more. You give a mouse a cookie, right? That's their attitude. What?
Did you lose a muffin?
Yeah.
Did you lose a muffin?
Or what's the pancake one?
Did you give a pig a pancake?
All of them. That's the same thing. Okay, last question. What are the people in the crowd forgetting? And we just mentioned that he just fed 5,000 of them with a little boy's lunch the day before.
Just want some temporary and
Okay. I was going to have you look at the picture on, I don't know what page it is for you. We've seen this picture before. It's the picture of the ruins. It's that little inset there picture. And it says, John 6:59 indicates that Jesus' discourse on bread, which we're only partway through, was delivered in the synagogue at Capernaum. The remains of the synagogue had been excavated and serve as a pattern for the reconstruction pictured above. The Jews' worship in the Old Testament centered around the temple in Jerusalem. After Judah was carried away to captivity in 586 BC and the temple was destroyed, Jews began to build synagogues for weekly worship in the lands of their captivity. Some of the earliest synagogues have been found in Egypt, but by the time of Christ, almost every city in the Roman Empire of any size had at least one. A typical Sabbath service included scripture reading from the Old Testament, a sermon, and sometimes an opportunity for the adult men to ask questions. See Luke 4:16 through 30 for a description of a Sabbath meeting in which Jesus participated. That is the synagogue at Capernaum, where it's the place where Jesus would have been for this discourse. Yes.
What's the difference between the Jews going to synagogue and the Samaritans not? Wasn't a big issue that the Jews had with Samaritans, not just their lineage, but also that they didn't go to Jerusalem. Isn't that the same thing?
It was more their theology, I think, that was their theology has some holes in it, and also just the hatred. Okay, questions on any of this? I think we're done. Good luck.